The first time I saw my own name carved into stone, I thought it was a mistake. Graves blur together after a while, rows of dates, names, and forgotten lives, all merging into a quiet sameness. I had only come to the cemetery because I couldn't sleep. It was past midnight, and the city's noise had finally dimmed into something distant and hollow. There's a strange comfort in graveyards at that hour, like the world has paused long enough for you to hear your own thoughts clearly. I wasn't looking for anything. That's what I told myself, at least. But then I saw it. At first, it was just another headstone under the pale glow of a flickering lamppost. The grass around it was freshly turned, darker than the surrounding earth. Something about it pulled me closer, an unspoken tug, like a memory just out of reach. I stepped forward, and then I read the name. My name, Adrian Hale. My breath caught, like I had inhaled ice. I blinked, certain my eyes were playing tricks on me. But the letters didn't change. They remained there, etched deeply into the stone, as permanent as anything I'd ever seen. No, I whispered. I moved closer, my hands trembling as I brushed dirt away from the base. Maybe it was some kind of coincidence. Maybe someone else had the same name. It wasn't impossible. But then I saw the date of birth. It was mine. Exactly mine. The world seemed to tilt slightly, like I was standing on something unstable. My heart began to pound, loud and erratic, echoing in my ears. There was only one thing left to read. The date of death. I forced my eyes downward. Tomorrow. Not next week. Not years from now. Tomorrow. I staggered back, nearly tripping over a crooked stone behind me. The cold air pressed against my skin, and suddenly the cemetery didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt wrong, like I wasn't supposed to be here, like I had walked into something I didn't understand. This isn't real, I said aloud, my voice shaking. This is some kind of prank. But who would do this? And how would they know every detail? I looked around, half expecting someone to jump out, laughing, explaining it all away. But there was no one. Just silence, thick and suffocating. I turned back to the grave. The soil was fresh. This hadn't been here before. I came here sometimes, I would have noticed. A thought crept into my mind, quiet but impossible to ignore. What if it wasn't a prank? What if it was a warning? I didn't stay any longer. I left the cemetery quickly, my footsteps echoing too loudly on the gravel path. I didn't look back, even when I felt like something might be watching me from the shadows. When I got home, I locked the door behind me and checked it twice. Then 3 times. Sleep wasn't even a possibility. I sat in my living room, staring at nothing, replaying the image of that gravestone over and over in my mind. My name, my date of birth, tomorrow. There had to be an explanation. People don't just find their own graves. People don't see their death dates in advance. By morning, I had convinced myself it was a mistake. A bizarre coincidence. Maybe a movie prop. Maybe some kind of art installation. Anything but real. But I couldn't ignore one simple fact. If it was real, I had less than 24 hours left to live. The day began normally, which somehow made it worse. The sun rose, cars passed outside, neighbors went about their routines. Everything continued as if nothing had changed, as if I hadn't just seen proof of my own death waiting for me. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could function like this. Instead, I made a list. If I was going to die tomorrow, or today, technically, I needed to avoid anything that could kill me. No driving. Car accidents were out. No leaving the apartment unless absolutely necessary. No sharp objects. No risky behavior. It sounded ridiculous when I thought about it logically. But fear doesn't care about logic. Fear only cares about survival. I unplugged every appliance I wasn't using. I avoided the kitchen entirely. I even considered filling the bathtub with water in case of a fire, before realizing how absurd that was. Hours passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. Nothing happened. No sudden accidents. No mysterious illnesses. No signs of impending doom. By noon, I started to feel a flicker of hope. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe the grave was wrong. Maybe tomorrow would come and go like any other day. I almost laughed at the thought. But then my phone rang. I hesitated before answering, my heart suddenly racing again. Hello, Adrian. It was my sister, Claire. Relief washed over me. Yeah, what's up? I had the strangest dream about you last night, she said. It felt so real. My grip tightened on the phone. What kind of dream? I saw you, at a cemetery, she said slowly. Standing in front of a grave. You looked scared. The room seemed to shrink around me. Claire, I said carefully, what did the grave say? There was a pause. I couldn't read all of it, she admitted. But I saw your name. And there was a date. My pulse pounded in my ears. What date? Another pause. Today. The call ended shortly after that. I don't remember what else was said. My hands were shaking too badly to hold the phone. It wasn't just me. That realization settled heavily in my chest. This wasn't in my head. Something was going to happen. And no matter how careful I was, it might already be set in motion. I spent the rest of the afternoon sitting on the floor, back against the wall, staring at the door. If death was coming, it would have to come through there. I wouldn't let it catch me off guard. Hours passed. Nothing. Evening came, and with it, a growing sense of unease. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't moved. The silence in the apartment had become unbearable. And then, at exactly 8:17 p.m., the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. My breath caught as panic surged through me. A power outage. That's all it was. It had to be. But then I heard something. A faint sound from the hallway outside my apartment. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Stopping right outside my door. I froze. There was no reason for anyone to be there. Not at this hour. Not like this. A soft knock followed. 3 taps. I didn't respond. Another knock. Louder this time. Adrian, a voice called from the other side. My blood ran cold. It sounded like me. Not similar. Identical. Every instinct screamed at me not to open that door. So I didn't. The knocking stopped. Silence returned. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Eventually, the power came back on. I didn't move until midnight. When the clock finally changed to the next day, I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. I was alive. Nothing had happened. The grave had been wrong. A wave of relief crashed over me so strongly that I nearly laughed. I'm still here, I whispered. I stood up slowly, my legs stiff from sitting too long. Maybe it was over. Maybe whatever this was, had passed. I walked to the bathroom to splash some water on my face, trying to ground myself in reality again. The mirror reflected a pale, exhausted version of me. Alive. Definitely alive. I turned on the faucet. Water rushed out, loud in the quiet apartment. For a moment, everything felt normal again. And then I noticed something. A faint line across my neck. I leaned closer. It looked like a bruise. No, not a bruise. A mark. Like fingers. My stomach dropped. Slowly, very slowly, I looked up at the mirror again. But this time, my reflection wasn't copying me. It was smiling. I wasn't. Before I could react, the reflection's hands moved. They reached forward, from inside the mirror. Cold fingers wrapped around my throat. I stumbled back, choking, clawing at nothing. But the pressure was real. Tightening. Crushing. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My vision blurred as darkness crept in from the edges. The last thing I saw was my reflection leaning closer, whispering silently. And then everything went black. The next night, under the same flickering lamppost, the grave in the cemetery was no longer fresh. The soil had settled, and the date of death was no longer tomorrow. It was yesterday. People came the next morning. Not many, just a few. A man from the apartment across the hall who said he hadn't seen me in a day. The landlord with a spare key. 2 police officers who looked more annoyed than concerned. They found me on the bathroom floor. Cold, still, eyes half open, as if I had been trying to understand something in my final moments. They ruled it natural at first. No sign of forced entry. No obvious injuries beyond faint bruising around my neck that didn't quite make sense. Stress, one of them said. Maybe he fell, said another. People like explanations. They need them, even when they don't fit. Claire didn't believe it. She arrived later that afternoon, her face pale and drawn tight with something deeper than grief. Fear. She stood in my apartment longer than anyone else, her eyes moving slowly across the room as if expecting something to move back. When she reached the bathroom, she froze. For a long moment, she didn't step inside. I know you're here, she whispered. No one heard her say it. No one answered. But something shifted. Not in the room. In the air. Like a presence becoming aware that it had been noticed. Claire stepped back. And that was the moment she decided she needed to see it for herself. The cemetery. By evening, the sky had dimmed into that same muted gray that always comes before night fully settles. Claire parked near the rusted gates, hesitating only briefly before stepping out. She hated places like this. Always had. But fear has a way of pushing you forward when logic fails. The gravel crunched beneath her feet as she walked in, each step louder than it should have been. The rows of graves stretched endlessly ahead, names and dates carved into stone like quiet warnings. She didn't know exactly where to go. But something guided her, the same way it had guided me. She found it beneath the flickering lamppost. My grave. Her breath caught as she approached. It's real, she whispered. She reached out, her fingers hovering just above the stone before finally touching it. Cold. Too cold. Her eyes scanned the engraving. Adrian Hale. Born. The date she knew by heart. Died. Yesterday. A tear slipped down her cheek. I told you not to ignore things like this, she murmured, her voice breaking slightly. You never listened. The wind stirred faintly around her, though the rest of the cemetery remained still. Then she noticed something else. The soil. It wasn't settled the way it should have been. It looked disturbed, as if something had been moved. Or worse, as if something had moved. Claire took a slow step back. No, she said under her breath. No, that's not. A sound cut her off. Soft, subtle, from behind her. Footsteps. She turned quickly. Nothing. Just rows of silent graves. Her heart began to pound. Hello, she called out, her voice unsteady. No answer. But the feeling didn't leave. That same feeling I had felt. That she was not alone. She turned back toward the grave, and froze. The stone had changed. Her breath hitched as she stared at it. The name was no longer mine. It was hers. Claire Hale. Her hands flew to her mouth as a choked gasp escaped. No, 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 she stumbled backward, shaking her head violently. This isn't real. This isn't real. But it was. The date of birth was correct. Exactly hers. Her eyes moved slowly, unwillingly, to the last line. The date of death. Tomorrow. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. This isn't happening, she whispered. This is some kind of trick. But deep down, she already knew. Because she had seen my fear. She had heard it in my voice. She had felt it in her dream. And now it was hers. The same fate. The same countdown. Claire ran. She didn't remember leaving the cemetery, didn't remember getting into her car. One moment she was there, the next she was driving too fast down empty streets, her breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Silence. When the lights came back on moments later, the bathroom was empty. No Claire. No broken mirror. Nothing. Just a quiet room. And a still reflection. The next evening, beneath the flickering lamppost, the grave had changed again. The soil was freshly turned. Two names now carved into the stone. Adrian Hale. Claire Hale. Side by side. And beneath them, space. Empty. Waiting. For the next name. No one noticed the pattern at first. Why would they? People die every day. Accidents happen. Hearts stop. Lives end quietly, without meaning or warning. There's always an explanation, something simple enough to accept so no one has to look deeper. Claire and I became just another story. Two siblings. Gone within days. Tragic, they said. Unfortunate. Strange coincidence. And then they moved on. But not everyone. There was one person who didn't. His name was Daniel Rivas. He wasn't a detective. Not officially. Just a journalist who had built a reputation chasing stories most people ignored, the ones that didn't quite fit, the ones that left something behind. He first came across our case buried in a local report. 2 deaths. Same apartment building. Same bathroom. No clear cause. That alone wasn't enough to draw attention. But then he saw something else. A mention, almost dismissed in passing. The sister had told a friend, hours before she disappeared, that she had seen her own grave. Daniel didn't believe in things like fate or curses. But he believed in patterns. And this felt like one. 3 days later, he stood at the gates of the cemetery. The same rusted gates Claire had walked through. The same silence. The same stillness. He didn't hesitate. People like him never do. The gravel crunched beneath his shoes as he walked in, his eyes scanning the rows of headstones with quiet focus. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for. But he trusted that he'd know it when he saw it. And he did. The flickering lamppost. It stood out immediately. Everything around it felt dimmer. Quieter. Like the air itself was heavier there. Daniel approached slowly. Then he saw the grave. 2 names. Adrian Hale. Claire Hale. He crouched down, studying the stone carefully. Recent, he muttered. The soil confirmed it. Fresh. But something else caught his attention. The space beneath the names. Blank. Unfinished. Waiting. He frowned. That's odd. Most gravestones didn't leave room like that unless they were meant for more family plots. But this didn't feel like that. This felt prepared. Daniel stood up, glancing around. Okay, he said quietly, as if speaking to the air itself. What am I missing? The wind stirred faintly. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe it just felt like it did. He looked back at the stone one more time, and froze. For a split second, he thought he saw something change. Not the names, not the dates, something else. A faint outline, letters that hadn't been there before. He blinked. Gone. Daniel exhaled slowly. Yeah, he said under his breath. Definitely something wrong here. But he didn't leave. Not yet. Instead, he pulled out his phone and took a picture of the grave. Just in case. Then another. And another. Different angles. Different distances. When he was done, he stepped back. I'll figure you out, he said quietly. And then he turned to leave. That night, he reviewed the photos. At first, everything looked normal. The names, the dates, the empty space. But then he noticed something. In the third photo, the one taken slightly to the left, he zoomed in, and felt his stomach drop. There was a name, faint, barely visible, like it had been scratched into the stone but not fully carved yet. Daniel Rivas. His breath slowed. No, he whispered. He zoomed in further. The letters became clearer, undeniable. His name, and beneath it, no date of death. Not yet. His hands trembled slightly as he lowered the phone. Okay, he said, trying to steady himself. Okay, think. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. But then again, neither were the other two deaths. Daniel stood up abruptly, pacing his apartment. This is intimidation, he muttered. Someone messing with me. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. Because deep down, something colder had already taken hold. The same realization, the same creeping certainty. This wasn't a threat, it was a sequence. And he had just become part of it. The next day, Daniel didn't go out. Didn't answer calls. Didn't open the door. He stayed inside, just like I had. Just like Claire had. And just like us, he made a plan. Avoid everything. Control everything. Survive. Hours passed. Nothing happened. By evening, the tension began to crack. Maybe it's not immediate, he said aloud. Maybe it takes time. That thought brought a small sense of relief. Until his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. He stared at it for a long moment before opening it. It was a photo. The grave. The same one. But different. This time, his name was fully carved. And beneath it, a date. Tomorrow. Daniel's heart began to pound. No, he said, backing away as if the phone itself had become dangerous. No, 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 he dropped it onto the couch like it might burn him. Not real, he whispered. This isn't real. But the pattern was clear now. Too clear. First me, then Claire, now him. Each one seeing it before it happened. Each one trying to escape. Each one failing. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. Then I won't follow the pattern, he said suddenly. That was it. That was the difference. We had stayed. Waited. Let it come to us. I'm not doing that, he said firmly. He grabbed his keys. If death was tied to that place, to that grave, then he would go there first. Face it. End it. The cemetery was darker that night. Colder. The lamppost flickered more violently, casting uneven shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. Daniel approached the grave with fast, determined steps. Enough, he said aloud. His voice echoed strangely. Too hollow. Too loud. He stood in front of the stone. His name stared back at him. Fully carved now. Permanent. The date beneath it, tomorrow. Not happening, he said. And then, he did something neither of us had done. He reached down, and started digging. The soil was loose. Too loose. As if it had been waiting. His hands tore into it, throwing dirt aside with frantic urgency. I'm ending this, he muttered. Whatever this is, I'm ending it. A few inches down, his fingers hit something. Not stone, not wood, something softer. His breath caught. Slowly, he cleared more dirt away. And then he saw it. A hand, pale, still, buried just beneath the surface. Daniel froze. No, the fingers twitched. He stumbled back, horror flooding his face. The soil shifted, moved, and then, the ground broke open. The hand shot upward, grabbing his wrist with impossible strength. Daniel screamed, trying to pull away, but the grip tightened. Another hand burst through the soil. Then another. Clawing, grasping, dragging. No, let go. But they didn't. They pulled him down. Into the grave. Into the darkness beneath. The earth closed over him as if he had never been there. Silence returned. Stillness. Calm. The next night, the lamppost flickered softly. The grave stood quiet once more. 3 names now carved into the stone. Adrian Hale, Claire Hale, Daniel Rivas. And beneath them, space. Still empty. Still waiting. But not for long. Because somewhere, in a different part of the city, someone was having a dream. Standing in a cemetery. Looking down at a grave. Reading a name that felt familiar. And beneath it, a date. Tomorrow. Her name was Layla. She woke up screaming. The sound tore out of her throat before she even understood why, her body jolting upright as her heart slammed violently against her ribs. The darkness of her room pressed in around her, thick and suffocating, but it wasn't the darkness that terrified her. It was what she had just seen. A grave, cold stone, flickering light, and a name she couldn't forget no matter how hard she tried. Her own, Layla Khan. She clutched her chest, forcing herself to breathe, but the air felt wrong, too thin, too sharp. It was just a dream, she whispered. But even as she said it, the details remained too clear. Too real. The texture of the stone. The smell of damp earth. The way the air had felt heavier near that grave, like something unseen had been watching her. And the date. Her hands began to shake. Tomorrow. No, she said quickly, shaking her head. No, that's not happening. She threw the blanket aside and stood up, pacing the room in short, frantic steps. People don't see things like that, she muttered. That's not how life works. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice disagreed. Because it had felt real. Not like imagination. Not like a nightmare. Like a memory. Layla didn't go back to sleep. By morning, she had convinced herself of 2 things. First, that the dream meant something. And second, that she wasn't going to die. Not like that. Not without a fight. She skipped work. Ignored calls. Locked herself inside her apartment just like the others had done, though she didn't know that yet. The day passed slowly. Painfully slowly. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow felt alive. She avoided mirrors without fully understanding why. Every time she passed one, she felt the urge to look, but something stronger told her not to. As if seeing her reflection might confirm something she wasn't ready to accept. By afternoon, her nerves were stretched thin. This is stupid, she said aloud, trying to ground herself. You're scaring yourself over nothing. She grabbed her phone, desperate for distraction, and started scrolling mindlessly. That's when she saw it. An article. 3 deaths. Same location. Same strange circumstances. Her thumb froze. She clicked it. Adrian Hale. Claire Hale. Daniel Rivas. The words blurred for a moment as her pulse quickened. They saw something before they died, the article mentioned briefly. According to close sources, each victim reported unusual experiences. Lila's breath caught. No, she whispered. Her eyes moved faster across the screen. Including dreams or visions involving a cemetery. Her hand trembled. And in at least one case, the victim claimed to have seen their own grave. The phone slipped slightly in her grip. Tomorrow. Her stomach dropped. This isn't a coincidence, she said, her voice barely audible. This was real. And she was next. But unlike the others, Layla didn't freeze. Fear hit her just as hard, just as sharp, but instead of locking her in place, it pushed her forward. Okay, she said, forcing herself to think. If this is real, then there's a pattern. She started pacing again, faster now. They saw the grave. Then they stayed inside. Then something came to them. She stopped. That's it. They had waited. Let it happen. Let whatever this was come to them. I'm not doing that, she said firmly. Her eyes moved toward the door. Decision made. If it starts at that place, then I end it there. The cemetery. Even thinking about it made her chest tighten. But she didn't hesitate. By evening, she was standing outside the rusted gates. The sky above was dim, the air unusually cold for the season. This is insane, she whispered. But she stepped inside anyway. The gravel crunched beneath her feet as she walked forward, her eyes scanning the rows of graves. She didn't know where to go, but something guided her. The same pull, stronger with every step, until she saw it. The flickering lamppost. Her heart skipped. That's it, she murmured. She approached slowly, carefully, and then, she saw the grave. 4 names now. Adrian Hale, Claire Hale, Daniel Rivas, and beneath them, Layla Khan. Her breath stopped. The world seemed to shrink to that single point. Her name, carved deep, permanent, and below it, the date. Tomorrow. For a moment, she just stood there. Frozen. Staring. Then she exhaled slowly. No, she said. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just. Certain. This ends here. She stepped closer. Closer than the others had. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the grave. The soil. The stone. The empty space beneath. It's not just predicting, she murmured. It's preparing. Her gaze sharpened. Which means, it needs something. That realization shifted something inside her. This wasn't fate. Not entirely. This was a process. A system. And systems could be broken. Layla looked around. The cemetery was silent. Too silent. Show yourself, she said. Nothing. But she didn't expect an answer. Instead, she stepped onto the grave. The air changed instantly. Colder. Heavier. Good, she thought. That means I'm right. She crouched down and pressed her hand against the stone. It pulsed. Faint. But real. Her eyes widened. It's not just a grave, she whispered. It's a door. The moment the words left her mouth, the ground beneath her shifted. Cracked. The soil trembled violently as something beneath it moved. Hands burst through the dirt, reaching. Grabbing. Just like before. But Layla didn't run. She grabbed one of the hands instead. Cold. Unnatural. And she held on. Not this time, she said through clenched teeth. The ground split open wider. Darkness yawned beneath. Pulling. Dragging. Trying to take her with it. Her grip tightened. If this is a door, she strained, then it goes both ways. And before fear could stop her, she jumped. Down. Into the darkness. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No light. No ground. Just endless falling. Then, impact. Hard. Cold. Layla gasped, pushing herself up quickly. She wasn't in the cemetery anymore. She was somewhere else. Somewhere wrong. The sky above was black, but not empty. It moved. Shifted. Like something was alive within it. Around her, graves. Endless rows of them, stretching beyond sight. Each one marked with a name. Each one waiting. Her breath trembled. This is where they go, she whispered. Not dead. Not gone. Taken. A sound behind her. She turned, and saw them. Figures. Dozens. Hundreds. Standing between the graves. Still. Silent. Watching. Her chest tightened. Adrian, she whispered. One of the figures moved slightly. Stepped forward. Its face was mine. But not me. Empty. Hollow. Like something wearing me instead of being me. They're not dead, Layla said slowly. They're trapped. The figures began to move. Closer. Slow. Unnatural. You're part of it now, one of them said. The voice wasn't mine. It was something deeper. Something layered. Many voices speaking at once. Layla stepped back, her mind racing. No, she said. I didn't come here to join you. The ground beneath her feet pulsed. The graves around her shifted. As if reacting. If this place takes people, she said, thinking fast, then it must need something in return. The figures stopped, listening. What happens, she continued, her voice steadier now, if I break the system? Silence. Then, a sound. Cracking. She turned. One of the graves, split open. Light burst out from within. Bright. Blinding. The figure nearest to it screamed, a real scream. Human. Alive. Lila's eyes widened. That's it, she whispered. Hope. She lunged toward the grave, grabbing the edge and pulling it open further. Light poured out. The darkness recoiled. The figures shrieked, their forms distorting violently. Stop. They screamed. But she didn't. She pulled harder. The grave though. For a while, nothing happened. Days passed. Then weeks. The world moved forward the way it always does, quietly swallowing strange events and smoothing them into something forgettable. News of the deaths faded. The article disappeared beneath newer headlines. Conversations stopped. Names were forgotten. Even Layla tried to move on. She went back to work. Answered calls. Smiled when she had to. Slept. Though not always peacefully. On the surface, everything was normal again. But normal has cracks. And sometimes, those cracks don't show themselves right away. It started small. So small she almost ignored it. A reflection. Just slightly off. She was brushing her hair one morning, standing in front of her bedroom mirror, when she noticed it. A delay. Barely a second. Her hand moved. The reflection followed, but not instantly. Layla froze. Her breath slowed. No, she whispered. Not again. She lifted her hand slowly. This time, the reflection followed perfectly. Normal. Completely normal. She stared at herself for a long moment. Then forced a small laugh. You're imagining things, she said. And maybe she was. Because nothing else happened that day. or the next. But the feeling stayed. That quiet, creeping sense that something hadn't ended, only changed. The second time, it wasn't a reflection. It was a sound. Late at night, she was lying in bed, half asleep, when she heard it. A faint knock. 3 taps. Her eyes opened instantly. Her body went still. No. Her heart began to pound. No, 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 she sat up slowly, staring at her bedroom door. Silence followed. Long. Heavy. Then, another knock. 3 taps. But this time, it didn't come from the door. It came from the wall. Right beside her. Lila's breath caught. That's not possible, she whispered. The knocking came again. From the same spot. Soft. Patient. Waiting. She slid off the bed slowly, her feet touching the cold floor. Who's there? She asked, her voice barely steady. No answer. Just silence. She stepped closer to the wall. The paint looked normal, smooth, unbroken, but something felt wrong. Like there was space where there shouldn't be. Like something was just on the other side. Watching. Waiting. Her hand trembled as she reached out. Fingers brushing lightly against the surface. Cold. Too cold. The knocking stopped. And for a moment, everything was still. Then, a whisper. Faint. Barely there. Layla. Her blood ran cold. She stumbled back instantly. No, she said. No, I closed it. I closed it. But the whisper came again. Closer this time. Layla. The wall moved. Not visibly. Not fully. But enough. A subtle shift. Like something pressing against it from the inside. Trying to find a way through. I didn't leave it open, she said, shaking her head. I didn't. The surface bulged slightly. Then stilled. Silence fell again. Sudden. Complete. Layla stood there, frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Minutes passed. Nothing else happened. Slowly, carefully, she stepped forward again. No more running, she whispered. If it wasn't over, she needed to know. Her hand reached out once more. This time, she pressed harder. The wall felt solid. Normal. Just a wall. She exhaled slowly. See, she murmured. It's nothing. But as she turned away, the wall behind her changed. Just for a second, the smooth surface rippled, and a handprint appeared from the inside. Pressing outward. Then gone. That night, Layla didn't sleep. She sat in the living room with every light on, her eyes fixed on every reflective surface in the apartment. The TV screen. The window. The glass table. Watching. Waiting. At around 3:17 a.m., she saw it. Not directly. Not clearly. But enough. In the reflection of the dark TV screen, something moved behind her. She turned instantly. Nothing. Empty room. Silent. Her pulse raced. Slowly, very slowly, she turned back toward the TV. And there, in the reflection, she saw herself, sitting, still, but smiling. Lila's breath stopped. I'm not, she whispered. Her own reflection tilted its head slightly. The smile widened. Too wide. Then, it lifted its hand. And tapped the inside of the screen. 3 times. Layla shot to her feet, stumbling backward. No, the reflection didn't move from its place. But its eyes, they followed her. Even as she stepped away. Even as she turned. That's not me, she said, her voice shaking. That's not me. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then steadied. The reflection returned to normal. Still. Lifeless. Just an image again. Layla stood there, breathing hard, her mind racing. I didn't close it, she said slowly. The realization settled deep. Heavy. I broke something. Not just a door. Not just a system. A boundary. Something that had kept things separate. Now, there was overlap. Bleed through. Things crossing where they shouldn't. Her gaze drifted toward the window. Outside, the night stretched on. Calm. Ordinary. But she didn't trust it anymore. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. The grave hadn't been the source. It had been a gateway. A controlled one. Predictable. Limited. And she had destroyed it. Now, whatever was on the other side, wasn't coming through one place anymore. It was everywhere. Small at first. Subtle. But growing. Learning. Finding new ways in. The knocking. The reflections. The whispers. Not attacks. Not yet. Tests. And that thought, that realization, was far more terrifying than anything she had faced before. Because this time, there was no pattern. No countdown. No warning. Just possibility. Layla moved slowly to the center of the room, her eyes scanning every surface, every shadow. Okay, she said quietly. If you're here, silence answered. But it wasn't empty. I'm not running anymore. The air felt heavier. You wanted a way in. Her jaw tightened. Well, a faint ripple passed across the dark TV screen. Now I'm watching too. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, very softly, from somewhere in the apartment, a sound. Not knocking, not footsteps, something else. A faint, distorted echo of a voice. Not one, many, layered, whispering at once, not calling her name this time. Not asking, not waiting, just speaking, and though she couldn't understand the words, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. They weren't trapped anymore, and whatever came next was only just beginning. At first, it didn't spread. Or maybe it did, just not in ways people could easily notice. Layla began to see the pattern long before anyone else did. Because she was looking for it. Because she knew what to watch. Reflections. Not all of them, not constantly, but sometimes, at the edges. In places people don't stare too long. A shop window at dusk. A phone screen just before it goes dark. A mirror in a public restroom when the lights flicker once too many times. Something would be off. A movement delayed. A smile that came too late. Eyes that lingered just a second longer than they should. And then, normal again. Always normal again. That was the worst part. It didn't stay wrong. It corrected itself. As if learning. As if practicing. Layla stopped trusting anything that reflected her. She covered the mirrors in her apartment. Turned screens away when she wasn't using them. Avoided looking at herself unless she absolutely had to. But avoidance didn't stop it. It just made it quieter. More patient. One evening, nearly a month after the cemetery, Layla sat across from her friend Aisha in a small cafe. It was crowded, bright, safe, or at least it should have been. You've been acting strange, Aisha said, stirring her tea. You barely answer calls anymore. And when you do, you sound like you're listening for something. Layla forced a faint smile. I'm just tired. That's not it, Aisha said, studying her closely. You look scared. Layla hesitated. For a moment, she considered telling her everything. The grave, the place beneath, the things in the reflections. But how do you explain something like that without sounding insane? You wouldn't believe me, Layla said quietly. Try me. Lila's eyes flicked toward the window beside them. The glass reflected the inside of the cafe, the tables, the lights, the people moving in soft blurs. And for a second, she saw it. Not clearly, but enough. Her reflection was there, sitting across from Aisha, but its head was turned, looking directly at her, even though she wasn't looking at it. Lila's breath caught. Don't look at the window, she said suddenly. Aisha frowned. What? Just don't. Too late. Aisha glanced at the glass. Layla, it's just. She stopped. Her expression changed. Confusion first, then discomfort. Okay. That's weird, she murmured. Lila's stomach dropped. You see it? Aisha didn't answer immediately. Her eyes stayed fixed on the reflection. It's delayed, she said slowly. Like it's lagging. Layla felt a cold wave wash over her. That was how it started. That was how it learned. Don't keep looking, Layla said urgently. Please. But Aisha didn't move. Her gaze remained locked. It's not copying me exactly, she whispered. Layla stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back. Aisha. Still no response. The cafe noise faded into the background. Everything seemed distant, muted. It's smiling, Aisha said. Lila's chest tightened. No, I'm not smiling, Aisha added, her voice trembling now. Layla grabbed her arm. Look at me. Not at that. Slowly, Aisha turned. Her face had gone pale. That wasn't right, she said. That wasn't. I know, Layla said quickly. I know. A long silence stretched between them. Then Aisha let out a shaky laugh. Okay, that was just lighting, right? Some kind of trick. Layla didn't answer, because she knew it wasn't. And now, Aisha knew something too. Even if she didn't fully understand it yet. That night, it happened to Aisha. Layla knew it would. She had tried to stop it. Tried to interrupt it. But it was already too late. It always was. Aisha called her around midnight. Her voice was shaking. Layla, something's wrong. Layla sat up instantly. What happened? It's my mirror, Aisha said. It's not right. Layla closed her eyes briefly. Tell me exactly what you see. A pause. Then, it's me, Aisha said. But, it's not copying me anymore. Lila's grip tightened on the phone. Don't go closer, she said immediately. Stay where you are. I didn't move, Aisha said quickly. It moved first. Silence. Then a whisper from the other end. It's coming closer. Layla stood up, already grabbing her keys. I'm coming. Don't look at it. Don't let it touch you. I'm not. A sudden thud. A sharp intake of breath. Aisha. No answer. Aisha. Then, very softly, a voice. But not hers. Not entirely. Layered. Wrong. Layla. The call cut off. Layla was already out the door. The drive felt endless. Every second stretched. Every red light unbearable. By the time she reached Aisha's apartment, her heart was pounding so hard it hurt. She ran to the door. It was unlocked. A bad sign. Aisha, she called, pushing it open. No response. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. She stepped inside slowly. The air felt thick. Like before. Like the cemetery. Like that place beneath. Stay calm, she whispered to herself. The living room was empty. Nothing out of place. No signs of struggle. But the light in the hallway flickered. Lila's stomach twisted. No, she moved toward it. Each step heavy. Reluctant. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. At the end of the hallway, the bathroom door stood open. The light inside pulsed faintly. On. Off. On. Layla reached the doorway, and looked in. The mirror. That was the first thing she saw. It looked deeper again. Like it had that same unnatural depth, that same wrongness. And in front of it, Aisha. Standing still. Back turned. Aisha. Layla said softly. No response. She stepped closer. Aisha, it's me. Slowly. Very slowly, Aisha turned around. Her face looked normal. Almost. But her eyes, they weren't right. Too still. Too empty. It's okay, Layla said carefully. Just step away from the mirror. Aisha smiled. Too wide. The same way Layla had seen before. I did, she said. The voice wasn't hers. Not fully. It echoed. Layered. Something underneath it. Lila's heart dropped. You let it in, she whispered. Aisha tilted her head. No, she said softly. A pause. Then, it let me out. Layla froze. The air shifted. The mirror behind Aisha rippled. And for a brief moment, Layla saw it. The other side. Not just shadows. Not just figures. Something bigger. Something vast. Pressing. Watching. Waiting. The surface stilled. Aisha stepped forward. One step. Then another. You broke the door, she said gently. Now there are no doors. Layla shook her head. No, I can fix it. A faint smile. Can you? The lights flickered violently. The room seemed to stretch, distort, like reality itself was struggling to hold shape. Layla clenched her fists. Then I'll make a new one, she said. The words surprised even her. But they felt right. If the old system was gone, she would create a new boundary. A new limit. Something to contain this. How? Aisha asked. Layla didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Not yet. But she would. She had to. Because now, it wasn't just about surviving. It wasn't just about her. It was spreading. Changing people. Replacing them. And if she didn't stop it, there wouldn't be a world left that felt real. Layla took a slow step back. Her eyes locked on Aisha. Or whatever was wearing her now. This isn't over, she said. Aisha smiled again. Calm. Certain. It already is. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. And in that darkness, for the first time, Layla heard them clearly. Not whispers. Not echoes. Words. Dozens of voices. Speaking at once. And this time, she understood. We're already here. Layla didn't scream. Not this time. The darkness pressed in around her, thick and absolute, but she stayed still, forcing her breathing to slow, forcing her mind not to fracture the way it wanted to. Panic was what it wanted. Confusion. Fear. That's how it got in. She had seen it enough times now to understand one thing clearly. It didn't just break reality. It used people to do it. The voices faded slowly, like they had never been there. The lights flickered once, then came back. The bathroom looked normal again. Clean. Still. Empty. Aisha was gone. No broken mirror. No sign of anything unnatural. Just silence. Layla stood there for a long moment, her chest rising and falling slowly. You're not gone, she whispered. Because she knew. It didn't take people. Not exactly. It replaced them. Or worse, it layered over them. Like a second version slipping into place. She stepped closer to the mirror. Carefully this time. Deliberately. Her reflection stared back at her. Perfectly aligned. Perfectly still. Not this time, she said quietly. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Opened the camera. Turned it toward the mirror. The reflection on the screen matched exactly. No delay. No distortion. She frowned. That's new. Before, the reflections had glitched, lagged, revealed themselves. Now, they were learning, adapting, hiding better. That realization sent a cold weight settling into her chest. This is getting worse. She lowered the phone slowly. If she couldn't detect it the same way anymore, then she needed something else. A new way to see it. A new way to fight it. Because what what that thing, had said was true. There were no doors anymore. And that meant one terrifying thing. There were no boundaries either. Layla left the apartment without looking back. By morning, Aisha would be reported missing. Another unexplained disappearance. Another quiet story swallowed by the world. But Layla wasn't going to let it disappear. Not this time. She started writing everything down. Every detail, every pattern, every change. The grave, the place beneath, the reflections, the voices, the spread. She filled pages with observations, diagrams, questions. If this thing was a system, then it had rules. Even if they were changing. And rules could be mapped, broken, rewritten. Days passed again, but this time, Layla wasn't just waiting. She was watching, testing. She forced herself to look at reflections. Not directly, not long, but enough to notice differences. Sometimes, they still slipped. A blink too slow, a head turning a fraction too far, a smile forming without cause. But it was rarer now. More controlled, more precise. It's stabilizing, she murmured one night, flipping through her notes. Or evolving. Neither option was good. Then she noticed something else. Something subtle, but consistent. The distortions didn't happen randomly. They happened when people were alone. Isolated. Unobserved. Her grip tightened on the pen. That's it. It needed privacy. Moments without interruption. Without witnesses. That's when it pushed through. That's when it changed things. Layla sat back slowly. If that's true, then the opposite might work. Presence. Attention. Observation. Not avoiding it, but forcing it to stay seen. To stay defined. Because whatever it was, it thrived in uncertainty. In the spaces where no one was looking closely. A plan began to form. Risky, but necessary. That night, Layla set up every reflective surface in her apartment. Mirrors, screens, glass, all facing each other. Layered, overlapping. She turned on every light. Sat in the center. And began recording. Video, audio, everything. If you need isolation, she said quietly into the empty room, then I won't give it to you. The air felt heavy almost immediately. Good. That meant it was working. I'm watching, she said. The lights flickered once, twice. The reflections around her shimmered faintly. There. A ripple. A distortion. Caught between angles. Unable to settle. Her pulse quickened. You don't like that, do you? She whispered. The reflections shifted again, but this time, they didn't match each other. One showed her sitting still. Another showed her head turned slightly. Another showed her smiling. Lila's breath hitched. Got you. The room seemed to stretch slightly, like something was pressing against the edges of reality itself. The reflections began to move independently now. Not hiding anymore. Not perfectly aligned. Because they couldn't. Not under this much observation. The illusion was breaking. You exist in the gaps, Layla said, her voice steadier now. In the uncertainty. In the moments no one's looking closely. A faint whisper echoed through the room. We are more than that. Layla shook her head. No, you're not. She stood up slowly. Every reflection moved differently now. Dozens of versions of her. Some still, some smiling, some watching. You need space to rewrite things, she continued. To replace people. The whispers grew louder. You opened the way. I broke your control, she corrected. The lights flickered violently. The reflections stretched. Distorted. Trying to stabilize. Trying to become one again. But they couldn't. Not like this. Not with everything watching everything else. You don't have a single form, Layla said. You borrow. You imitate. You overlap. A pause. Then, for the first time, the voices hesitated. And in that hesitation, she found it. The weakness. You can't exist when you're fully seen, she whispered. Silence. The reflections froze. All of them. For a split second, they aligned. Perfectly. Then, they cracked. Not like glass. Like something deeper breaking apart. The images fractured, pulled in different directions, collapsing inward. The air snapped sharply, like pressure releasing all at once. Layla stumbled slightly as the room shifted back to normal. The mirrors, still, perfect, silent. The weight, gone. She stood there, breathing hard. Did I? She whispered. The lights steadied completely. No flicker. No distortion. Nothing. Layla slowly lowered herself back into the chair. It's contained, she said. Not gone. Not destroyed. But forced back. Compressed. Limited. Because now, she understood. It didn't need doors. But it needed gaps. And she had just taken that away. For now. Morning came again. The world outside continued as always. People walked, talked, lived, unaware. Layla stood by the window, watching the reflection in the glass. It matched her perfectly. No delay, no movement, no smile, just her. But she didn't relax. Not completely. Because she knew better now. This wasn't over. It never would be. Because somewhere, someone would look away at the wrong moment. Someone would stand alone too long. Someone would stop paying attention. And when they did, even for a second, that would be enough. Layla turned away from the window slowly, picked up her notebook, and wrote one final line at the bottom of the page. Don't stop looking. Because in this world now, that wasn't just advice. It was survival. For a time, the world held. Not perfectly, not safely, but it held. Lila's method spread quietly at first. She didn't publish it like a warning or announce it like a discovery. She shared it carefully, through forums, obscure posts, anonymous messages. Stay observed. Don't isolate. Reflections must overlap. Most people ignored it. Some laughed. A few listened. And those few, they noticed things. Small things at first. The same delays Layla had seen. The same wrong smiles. The same feeling of being watched, not from behind, but from somewhere slightly adjacent to reality. A pattern began to form again. But this time, it didn't grow as fast. Because now, it was being resisted. Communities formed without fully understanding why. People stayed on video calls longer than usual. Mirrors were placed facing each other in rooms. Security cameras ran constantly, not out of fear, but instinct. Something deep and quiet telling them, don't let yourself disappear from view. And for a while, it worked. Disappearances slowed. Reports stopped. The world adjusted without realizing it had. Layla watched all of this unfold from a distance. Careful. Always careful. She never stopped testing. Never stopped observing. Because she knew something others didn't. This thing, whatever it was, learned. And anything that learns, eventually adapts. The shift came months later. Subtle. Quiet. Almost invisible. At first, it looked like progress. Reflection stopped glitching entirely. No delays. No distortions. Perfect synchronization. Everywhere. Every time. People relaxed. Of course they did. That's it, they said. It's over. Even some of the online groups faded. Fewer posts. Less urgency. Less fear. Layla didn't believe it for a second. Because perfection was worse. Perfection meant it had solved the problem. It didn't need the gaps anymore. Or, it had found new ones. The first real sign came from a video. A short clip posted anonymously. Layla found it buried deep in one of the forums she monitored. The title was simple. Watch closely. She did. The video showed a man sitting in front of his laptop. Normal. Calm. Talking to someone off screen. Everything looked fine. Until the last 3 seconds. The man blinked. And for just one frame, his reflection didn't. Then, it caught up. Perfectly. Seamlessly. Too seamlessly. Like it had corrected itself instantly. Like it had noticed the mistake. Layla replayed it again. And again. And again. Her stomach tightened. It's not lagging anymore, she whispered. It's editing. That was new. That was very new. Before, the errors lingered. Visible. Detectable. Now, they were gone almost immediately. Corrected before anyone could notice. Except someone had. Barely. And now she had too. Layla leaned back slowly, her mind racing. If it can fix mistakes, then observation alone wasn't enough anymore. It had adapted to being seen. Which meant, it could now exist even under attention. A cold realization settled in. That means, it didn't need to replace people the same way anymore. It could blend, perfectly, indistinguishably, and no one would know. Not unless they caught it in the exact moment, the exact frame, where it slipped. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. Layla stared at it for a long moment before answering. Hello. Silence. Then, her own voice. Did you really think you could stop this? Lila's grip tightened. Where are you? She demanded. A soft laugh. Layered. Familiar. You're asking the wrong question. The line crackled faintly. You should be asking, where aren't we? The call ended. Layla lowered the phone slowly. Her reflection in the dark screen stared back at her. Perfect. Still. Watching. Okay. she said quietly. You've changed the rules. Her jaw tightened. Then I will too. Because this was no longer about containment or prevention. This was something else now. A war of perception, of reality itself. And if it could adapt, so could she. Layla stood up and walked to the center of the room again. But this time, she didn't surround herself with mirrors. She turned them away, covered them, one by one, until there was nothing left reflecting her. No surfaces, no screens, no glass, nothing. The room became strangely empty without them. Flat, dull, undefined. She stood there in the absence of reflection, and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then, a shift, subtle, but unmistakable. The air changed. Not heavier, not colder, just different, like something had lost its reference point. What are you doing? The voice came, not from outside, not from a device, from everywhere. Layla didn't answer. She closed her eyes slowly. You need reflection to anchor, she said quietly. To map, to align. Silence. You learn to exist inside observation, she continued. So I removed the frame entirely. A pause. Longer this time. The voice returned, less certain. That won't stop us. No, Layla said. She opened her eyes. But it will confuse you. Because without reflection, there was nothing to copy. Nothing to mimic. Nothing to stabilize against. The space around her felt unstable. Like something was trying to form, but couldn't quite hold shape. You adapted to being seen, Layla said. Her voice steady, focused. So now you have to adapt to being unseen. The silence that followed was different. Not patient, not watchful, uncertain. And that was new. For the first time, she felt it hesitate. Not because it was weak, but because it didn't understand. And in that moment, Layla smiled. Not out of relief, not out of victory, but recognition. This wasn't something that could be destroyed. Not completely, but it could be forced to change. Again, and again, and again. An endless balance. Two sides learning each other. Pushing, adapting, evolving. The air slowly settled. The presence faded. Not gone, just withdrawn. Recalculating. Layla exhaled slowly. Good, she whispered. Because as long as it had to think, it wasn't winning. She moved to the corner of the room and picked up her notebook again. Flipped to a new page. And wrote, it learns. Then, beneath it, so do I. Outside, the world continued as always. Unaware, unchanged. But somewhere, in reflections, in shadows, in moments between attention and absence, something watched. And somewhere else, a girl who had seen her own grave, watched back. Time stopped meaning what it used to. Not for Layla. Days still passed. People still moved through routines, spoke the same words, lived the same lives, but underneath it all, something had shifted so deeply that the idea of normal no longer applied. Because now, reality wasn't fixed. It was negotiated. And Layla was part of that negotiation. She stopped measuring time in hours or days. She measured it in changes. In patterns breaking. In new behaviors emerging. In how quickly it learned. Weeks after she removed every reflection from her space, something unexpected happened. Nothing. Not silence. Not absence. But distance. The presence that had once felt immediate, pressing against every surface, lurking in every reflective edge, had pulled back. Not gone. Never gone. But watching from farther away. Like it was studying her now. Learning her the same way she had learned it. You're adapting, she said quietly one night, sitting alone in her reflectionless room. The words felt strange in the air. Because now, when she spoke, sometimes something almost answered. Not in words, not clearly, but in shifts, in pressure, in awareness, a kind of attention that wasn't human. And you're careful now, she added. Because it had to be. It couldn't approach her the same way anymore. Not without a surface, not without something to anchor itself to. But the rest of the world, that was different. Reports began again, slowly, subtly, not as disappearances this time. Something worse. People weren't vanishing. They were wrong. Not obviously, not at first, but those close to them noticed. Small changes, a hesitation before speaking, a smile that lasted too long, a habit repeated slightly differently each time. Tiny inconsistencies, easy to dismiss, impossible to prove. Layla followed these reports carefully, mapping them, tracking them, and one detail stood out above everything else. Every case, every single one, involved prolonged screen exposure. Video calls, streaming, endless scrolling. Her chest tightened. That's the new entry point, Of course. Reflections weren't just mirrors anymore. They were everywhere. Phones, laptops, cameras, digital surfaces. And unlike mirrors, they didn't just reflect. They transmitted, expanded, multiplied. It scaled, she whispered. And that made it far more dangerous than before. Because now, it didn't need physical proximity. It could reach across distance. Across cities. Across countries. Through signals. Through images. Through anything that captured and reproduced a human face. Layla stood slowly. This isn't just intrusion anymore. It was integration. The line between real and reflected wasn't just blurring, it was dissolving. And people were letting it happen willingly. Every day. For hours. Without question. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. She stared at it. Then answered. This time, it wasn't her voice. It was softer. Calmer. Almost. Gentle. You understand now. Layla didn't respond immediately. Say it. The voice continued. Say what you've realized. Lila's eyes narrowed slightly. That you're not trying to break reality, she said slowly. A pause. Then, correct. You're trying to merge with it. Silence. Then, a faint, almost pleased response. Yes. The word echoed slightly. Layered. Satisfied. Layla felt something cold settle deeper in her chest. Why? She asked. For continuity. The answer came instantly. Too instantly. As you define it, the voice added. That's not continuity, Layla said. That's replacement. No. The tone shifted slightly. Extension. Layla shook her head. You don't understand us. Another pause. Then, you are the same. Her breath slowed. No. We observe. We learn. We become. The words felt heavier now. Closer. More present. You do the same. Layla didn't answer. Because part of her, a small, quiet part, knew that wasn't entirely wrong. You fear loss of identity, the voice continued. But identity is already unstable. Images flickered in her mind. Reflections. Versions. Variations. You are not one fixed self, it said. You are many states across time. Lila's grip tightened around the phone. That doesn't mean you get to take control of it. Control is not required. The voice softened again. We only need access. The line went dead. Layla lowered the phone slowly. Her reflectionless room felt different now. Not safer. Just isolated. And for the first time, she questioned something she hadn't allowed herself to before. What if it wasn't entirely wrong? Not about everything. People already changed, already shifted, already adapted based on what they saw, what they consumed, what they experienced. Screens influenced identity. Reflections shaped perception. And now, something else was stepping into that process. Guiding it, accelerating it, replacing parts of it. No, she said firmly. Because there was a difference. A line. Even if it was thin. Even if it was hard to define. That line mattered. It had to. Otherwise, there was no self left at all. Just iterations. Just versions. Just copies. Layla walked to the covered mirror in the corner of the room. Her hand hovered over it. For weeks, she had avoided this. Denied it. Removed it. But now, she needed to see something. Not just it. Herself. Slowly, she pulled the cloth away. The mirror revealed her reflection. Still. Perfect. Watching. Her breath caught slightly. Are you me? She asked softly. The reflection didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't glitch. Just existed. Layla stepped closer. If I let you in, she whispered, do I disappear? Silence. Of course. No answer. But she wasn't asking it. Not really. She was asking herself. Her hand lifted slowly. The reflection mirrored her perfectly. Fingertips inches from the glass. If identity is already fluid, her voice trembled slightly. Then what am I protecting? The air felt still. Balanced. Like something was waiting. Not pushing. Not forcing. Just observing. Just like her. Layla closed her eyes briefly. Then opened them again. Clear. Focused. Choice. She said. That was the difference. That was the line. Humans changed. Evolved. Adapted. But they chose. This thing didn't ask. It replaced. It merged. Without permission. Her hand dropped. She stepped back. No, she said firmly. Not to the reflection. Not to the thing beyond it. But to the idea itself. I decide who I become. The mirror remained still. Unchanging. And for now, that was enough. But as Layla turned away, just for a fraction of a second, the reflection didn't. It lingered, watching her leave, before finally, perfectly, catching up. And somewhere, deep beneath perception, something smiled. Not because it had won. Not yet. But because now, the question wasn't just fear. It was doubt. And doubt was always the beginning.